Hello.
Testing, testing. Inga.
Hi.
Hello,
Hey guys.
Sarah, Alessia, John. How is everybody today?
Good enough for a Wednesday.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, how are you keeping, Inge?
Getting fed up with this because it takes a long time to recover.
Not bad.
But it's okay.
At least you're recovering. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Who else do we have on the line? I see John and Alessia on mute. Well, I don't see them.
Hi, it's Alessia. Actually, I'm a little bit ill, so I decided to join because Nick invited me yesterday. I'm from Janus Worldwide Company responsible for marketing. Excuse
great.
my being muted. I just want to avoid any extra sounds I have here, okay?
No problem. We call muting is the new virtual social distancing.
Yeah.
So it's just fine. So, Inga, give me an update. What's going on over there on your neck of the woods?
Being quarantined since the 14th of March is going on, which is
Yeah.
the same day on which I fell ill. So I probably hung out, like infecting other people before getting the symptoms. So that's a pity. But apart from that, just like all of you, I guess, just hanging in there. And the symptoms that I have, the one that's most annoying is like you get out of breath. That's really not nice. So I'm also not speaking so much in these days, honestly. And apart from that, I completely lost all sense of smell, which is weird and has its perks and its downsides. Depends on what you would like to smell in these days. And
Yeah, well, with everybody being at home, working from home, probably not taking as many showers as we should, maybe that's a blessing in disguise.
Exactly.
Look at it that way. So,
yeah, I do.
Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to get this all set up here. So, for those of you guys who are just joining, this is welcome to day whatever it is of this social distancing experiment. My name's Tucker Johnson, and a few of my colleagues from Nimsy Insights. I work for a company called Nimsy Insights, and what we're doing here is an experiment because we are a very gregarious industry. Most of us, I believe, probably work in the localization industry. We love our events. We love talking to other people. We're a very collaborative, community-focused industry. And with all that's going on in the world right now, unfortunately, a lot of the events and local lunches and social gatherings that we normally come to enjoy are not happening, unfortunately. So I think that there's a need, and that need is for human interaction because we are human-centric people in this industry. So what we're doing is just having these pop-up discussion groups. Anybody can join. It's completely open to the public, and what we're going to try today is we have some topics to kind of keep us on focus here. Bring some, how do I say, some value to each other, sharing best practices on different things. But really, this is your guys' group. If you're on this call, then you're just as important as anybody else on this call. So please feel free to jump in. I encourage everybody, bring a cup of coffee if you're in my time zone. Bring a cup of wine or a glass of wine if you're in a different time zone, or if you're in my time zone. Hey, there's no rules during quarantine. and just enjoy talking with your fellow colleagues. And today, the topic that we wanted to focus on today was this managing remote teams. And let me bring up some questions here. I'm guessing everybody on this call, or most people on this call, are working remotely now. And that means if you're a manager, you have suddenly found yourself managing remote teams. And some of us have more experience in that. Some of us have been doing that for a while. Some of us maybe are new to it. So I wanted to share some best practices that we have, that all of us may have, about how we go about doing that. Really quickly, the obligatory 5 reminders from World Health Organization, because I think it's timely and pertinent here. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, keep a safe distance, stay home. For God's sake, please stay home if you can. Cough into your elbow. All right. My social responsibility is complete, having reminded everybody of that. So, best practices for remote managers in localization. So, I wrote a report. I work for a company called NIMSI Insights. We do market research and consulting and all that stuff, and we regularly publish a lot of research and reports on our website. And a while back, I don't write much these days, but I wrote a report on remote working, managing remote employees. And in that, I highlighted 3 different principles that were important if you were a manager managing a remote team. That's trust but verify, inclusivity, and encouraging camaraderie. And I think these are very important things to be focusing on. Trust, because you need to be able to trust your employee. Inclusivity of all team members. And how do I foster a sense of teamwork and camaraderie amongst my team members, even though we may be working, not sharing coffee together across the table in an office. And I want to open up the conversation here and talk to you guys, hear from you guys. And some of the, if you don't know where to start, I put together some questions here. What are the most important things you can do as a manager to support your team? How do you use technology? How do you see trust, the concept of trust in working remotely? How do you build communities? How do you build a sense of community? What are the traits of a successful remote team member? If anybody's using any KPIs or metrics like that to track the success of their remote teams, I'd love to hear about that. How do you manage with time zone differences? We don't have to go straight down this list. Just this is here for inspiration, but we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So with that, I want to shut up because I don't want this to be the Tucker show, and I don't want it to be the NIMSI show either. We have a bunch of awesome people, looks like, from outside NIMSI. But who wants to go first here? Who wants to chime in? I know you guys all have a lot to say.
A lot to say.
Well, I know
But are
you
we
have a lot to say,
drinking?
Renato.
No,
Irish coffee.
I'm not saying it.
Wouldn't you like to know?
They wants to talk about how crazy it is to have a kid that you're supposed to be taking care of and educating, or several kids and working at the same time, especially if they're young and active.
So how are you managing that, Melissa?
Not well.
No?
Well, no, mine has never been a kid that will sit and watch a whole movie or even like 20 minutes of a movie. So I've been negotiating with him like crazy. Like Tucker at one point told me nothing prepares you for negotiation like having kids. That's totally true. It's like sit down and watch SpongeBob 20 minutes. I'm putting the timer on 20 minutes. You can do it. Eat your carrots.
So how are you interacting with your remote team? How does that affect, because I know you're having calls, you're having, you're having client calls, you're having calls with internal team members. How are you managing that?
I just warn people up front that he's going to cause a ruckus. And I mean, it was great yesterday because we ended an office hour on time because we just couldn't continue anymore. He fell very dramatically to the floor and then got up and started licking my arm. So that was the end of that.
How old is he?
He just turned 5. So
I've got one of those, a 5-year-old. Yeah.
Okay, boy or a girl?
I've got 2 boys, but yeah. So I'm Stella, by the way, from Translators Without Borders, and I just want to say this is a great idea. I can relate really well to a lot of what has already been said, both on a professional level and on the personal level as well. So, like you guys, we're working remotely, so this isn't a huge change for us. But yeah, the situations that you were just talking about, Alyssa, that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've been discussing a lot internally as a leadership team on how we can manage these kind of situations. So we already have people on our team who have small children, particularly the very little ones, really struggling, and they don't know what to do because essentially they can't do their work to their best capacity. And this whole situation for us, it's like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, we have a load more work, but on the other hand, we have all these difficult situations. So how do we manage that? So do we turn around to people and say, well, you know, you don't need to work because we get it, you know, so don't worry. But realistically, we know that their work is piling up. So it just seems like it would be empty words to those people. So yeah, we've been just trying to be as supportive as possible. We've created groups for parents with parenting ideas, and really nice actually that we had a team member, so not coming from the leadership team, a team member who decided to set up a volunteer initiative. So for those people who actually find that they have more time on their hands, perhaps because they can't go out and they don't have little people or dogs or old people or stuff like that, that they can offer to support the ones who are struggling. So we set up a little initiative with a form where people can say, okay, I'm really good at editing, or I can help you with tech, or I can help you with this or that. And so they're just doing that by themselves, which we thought was a really great idea, but it's a real struggle.
It's interesting that a lot of initiatives are popping up like that of new ideas. I mean, a moment like this is a moment for innovation where people create new solutions and change social norms. I think that, and I wonder how it's going to be in other countries where people touch each other when they hug, they kiss, when they meet, and how does that affect even how we deal with children, which is the point there. But how are you doing, Stella, with 2 kids at home and a husband and a family? And
yeah, it's so for me. So I've been school's been closed for over a month now here. So I'm in the north of Italy. So I think this is week 5, and I do. It's not good, to be honest. Yeah, because both myself and my husband, we're both working from home. So we're really lucky that we can work from home. So we consider ourselves incredibly lucky. But at the same time, the older child, he has his homework. He just has to sit there and do that. He's incredibly slow, so it takes him all week, and then we have to do it on the weekend. The little one, he's getting restless. And unfortunately, I do tend to just give him my phone when I'm on a call, which I know it's against all the parenting advice. And somebody said, oh, that children shouldn't have more than 1 hour screen time a day. And well, you do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time,
the
we
rules,
did.
the rules of work. Yeah. I wonder how it is in an apartment, because here in my house, I'm in the basement. My wife is in the kitchen. And it's an 18-year-old. It's not a child anymore. It's in his bedroom, but we have all loud voices, so we're interfering with each other. I can't imagine in an apartment how that works. What rules have you created to avoid interference? if at all.
I'm in.
Haven't. Yeah, no, we're lucky because we've got a big space. So
I'm in an apartment. We're working in the same room, and so we try not to schedule meetings at the same time, which is practically an impossibility. So yeah, my partner is having a meeting right now, and he asked me to talk in this direction.
Tell him to talk louder. Tell him to talk louder so I can hear what he's saying.
Let's get some free advice, right?
Yeah. But yeah, sometimes I go and sit in the bathroom, but Wi-Fi is worse there. So depending on the case, I do that or not. And yeah, I have to like keep my voice down, which I'm not used to when I hold meetings, and talk in another direction. So I was reminded now to doing that.
Stella, you mentioned that you're setting up programs for like people that are working from home with kids versus people that aren't working from home with kids. Like, how can they help support each other? Like for those of us, what would your recommendations be to those of us that do have little screamer ankle biters running around while we're on Zoom calls? And what would your recommendations be for people that don't have kids? How can they support?
I know that I have recommendations. I just, like we talked about this, and we didn't really come up with any. I don't know that there are any answers. So it's just about understanding. We had a situation where we had a call, and somebody forgot to put themselves on mute, and so we heard this whole conversation about making hot chocolate and somebody being grumpy, they'd just woken up, and the colleague, she was mortified when she realized she hadn't been on mute. So then, sending around a communication to the team, it doesn't matter. You don't need to worry. All these different situations that have happened. We had a call and somebody was sticking a car up somebody's nose. None of that matters. And just so that people don't need to hide the situation that's going on, like you got right now. And I've actually, with my team, I've been bringing my kids onto a lot of the calls with my teams just to say hello. And it's a chance for them to learn more about what I do, which because they don't get it. But yeah, I don't. The initiative of just supporting one another, the way it's set up is that you have people who want to offer support. There's a form for them, and then there's another form for people asking for help. And there's a number of different categories, but people can offer other stuff. And then the team member who proposed this initiative, she's going to do the matching. So it's just an organic, very informal thing.
I like that idea of bringing your kids on the call, because I think that's a perfectly, 2 months ago, that was a perfectly reasonable thing to be mortified that you weren't on mute and you were talking to your kids, hopefully not screaming obscenities at them. But I think this is
Korea, the guy in the BBC from Korea. Apparently, they did. They redid the video. They did a video where he embraces and the kids come in and so on.
I think that's going to be the new norm. I think we're going to have a tolerance for that, and it's going to be the expected. And I think one thing, if you're working in a remote team, and especially if you're a manager, is to be okay with that, right? Like, I'm just getting back from 2 weeks of vacation myself, but Renato, I think you had talked to our team and said, hey guys, like, this is the new normal. Don't worry about it. Like, if you have to take care of kids, take care of kids. If I think everyone, because we're all in this together, it's the new normal, and I think people are just getting used to it.
Yeah, Renato, you forwarded us an email with some tips around having kids and remote meetings, and one of those tips was introduce your children to the people who are on call, because so many of us are in the same situation that we should be understanding rather than embarrassed. Because when you're thinking about the noise, you actually can't focus on the call. Yeah, but when everyone understands that not everyone, but those who have kids or pets in a similar situation, it's better to introduce your child to the call and say, you're going to be expect some noise, but I'll do my best to be on mute if you can.
You've got incoming, Alyssa.
I saw them back there.
Oh yeah.
It's a little ninja sneaking up behind you.
Yeah. No, this is a 1-bedroom apartment, so there's not a place for him to go, really, And even if there was, he's such an extrovert, and kids, I think one thing I've realized as a working parent is small kids, they don't understand that you have to do work. They just think that you would rather be in front of your computer than spending time with them. And so it is a bit, this kind of goes against all the standard advice from psychologists where you're supposed to be separating your work time from your family time, right? Because, anybody on this call who has kids knows that, like, they take offense, like they take it personally when you're here instead of with them, So it's, I don't know, like, I think my kid and probably other people's kids are having a lot more kind of moments, breakdowns, kind of making a big deal out of nothing these days. And I think that's because they're used to having your attention when you're there with them for the most part. And they don't really know how to process it that well.
And they don't have company. They're in isolation, right? With us also.
Yeah, that's the thing too. If you have one kid, like I only have one, so he doesn't have like a built-in playmate that he can kind of go to instead of coming to me maybe for certain things. So it's definitely not, an ideal situation in any way. I've heard some advice I've heard is try to set up WhatsApp calls with your kids' friends' parents, right? So that they still get some remote interaction. I don't know if anybody's tried something like that. It's kind of on my list of stuff to do, but.
So my daycare, not daycare, whatever you want to call it, not my daycare. I graduated last year. My son's daycare is setting up remote lesson plans, and part of me is like, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so grateful for this. But part of me is like, God damn it, just one more thing I have to do now because I got to sit down. He's not going to sit there and count his blocks by himself. Fortunately, my wife has been super awesome about handling all of that. So, yeah. Can you guys see my screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah.
Awesome. I just put up these questions. I realized I wasn't sharing. I had slides and everything, but you guys didn't see them, and that's okay. I just put these up. I'm trying to walk the line between, I don't want this to be too structured of a conversation, but I also want to provide this.
So what are we drinking?
Like I said, none of your business. I'm drinking whatever they had left on the liquor shelf at the store, right? Beggars can't be choosers these days.
So yeah, we had this conversation because, we working all over the world, but we do have written in our contracts, we're not allowed to drink during work time. But yeah, that question has been raised more frequently just over the last few weeks about, well, but what are our working hours? And maybe it's okay.
There was this Netflix guidelines, right? That it doesn't make much sense to think in terms of hours these days, because you're working all the time, essentially, and so one of their policies is that they didn't track vacation, because if we don't track the hours that people are working, why do we track the hours that people are not working, right? Why the need to track vacations and time that people are not working when you're not really measuring the effort that they're doing outside of what would be regular hours. What I've been thinking a lot about is how this period is going to affect activities moving forward. Everybody in the not only in our industry, but how we work and how we look at teams and things. It's not new for the translation industry, but how do you do other activities, government, and a lot of the stuff that we used to handle face to face. I need to renew my driver's license, and I can't. How do you get that done? Do you really need to have a service and a person that sit down and do things like that? That's the question.
How many folks are new to working remotely on this call? Like, has anyone never done it before? I don't think so. See, that's just the thing. And we were talking about this a little bit the other day. It's like, as usual, I think the language services industry is kind of leading the way. Like, we're one step ahead. I see other companies out there, like my wife's company. She works for T-Mobile, a telecom company. And there's no reason why she can't do her job from home. But they have a very office-oriented work culture. And they're kind of struggling on how to do that. And I think what I'm seeing from other companies is managers who are not used to managing remote employees have a tendency to kind of micromanage and assume that if I'm not checking up on these people, if I'm not scheduling meetings with them, then they're not going to be getting any work done. And I find that's completely counterproductive, personally, but it's just kind of the way that new managers tend to go, I think, when faced with work remote.
Yeah, well, micromanaging is bad in any circumstance, right? And of course, in remote, it's kind of more visible because it's more, I guess, out there. It's like, what did you do today? If a micromanager is looking at you from his cube or from his office, he can see if you're in front of the computer, right? And just, or if you are in the break room. When, micromanagers, when with remote people, they really, really struggle with micromanaging because it's very difficult, right? Unless you have a keylogger or one of this crazy stuff, or the video camera all the time on. So it's very, very hard for them to do that. And to your point about your wife, it's true. This industry has been always remote. Even before video conference, as soon as the email came out, it's like everybody started sending the translations by email, right? So then we embraced technology really, really fast. So this industry was born remote, right? So I think we have a special advantage there, but I think other more traditional industries, and not necessarily more traditional companies, but more traditional industries, they're really struggling with this working from home thing because they don't know how to do it, or they had to move to do it really fast, right, overnight. They didn't say like, oh, we're going to start working from home 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or some people can work from home. But some companies have done that, but most of the companies have not.
Yeah. So what's the opportunity for us in the language servicing there? Like I agree with everything that you just said.
Okay. I think the opportunity is what Renato was saying, is identifying what's coming, what is going to change out of this, right? And after we identify what is going to change, is figure out how can we get kind of a step ahead of the change. I think, for example, this conversation, it's a step ahead of the change, right? Like we are going to have this remote social events for a while. I've been having social remote events for, the last week. And I think it's going to increase. And maybe it's going to replace a lot of the social interactions. I have a friend, like, let's say Gustavo, that is right there in the other side of the world. If I want to hang out with him, I just, usually we used to pick up the phone. But now maybe we start doing video chat or not seeing each other only on the conference, right? So that's kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gustavo.
Yeah, what Pablo said is what it happened exactly to us. We were a normal LSP, having like 10 employees in Miami, 45 in Buenos Aires, and one day to the other, we have to jump to work remotely, all of them. So right now we are learning. We are learning very, very fast. We have usually 1,000, 1,500 freelance that we use per month. But that's another creature. So to work with our employees remotely is something that we have to learn. We were doing just 1 day per week, 2 days per week, like remote working, and now we are doing everything remote working, because at least in Buenos Aires and Miami, you couldn't be working at the office. We still have 2 people in DC that they were already remote because they were only 2. So for us, it's learning. And what is most difficult for us is how we control what the employees do, because I saw it on Friday, which was our first day totally remote. I sent an email saying thank you to everybody for what they do. And on the other hand, I pick up the phone and I call 2 employees and I tell them, look, if you continue working like that, you are not going to be working at this company anymore. So in general, the response was great. But in some cases, a couple of people take that as a vacation. So we are learning what we do, how we do it, especially for the managers. It's very difficult because we were working our teams were there, okay? And we have for example, in Buenos Aires and in Miami, in both cases, we have everybody on the same floor. So if a PM has to talk with an AM, it's just walk 5 meters, and now it's online. So we are learning, but the challenge more important for us at this point this week is how we control. For example, I get reports who is online, what is doing who, but I don't see. I have a lot of information, but I don't know what is important and what is not yet. Maybe people that used to work more remotely or more online, like you, Renato, could help us to tell us what we have to look, because for us it's like everything is new.
No, I see, Gustavo, what you're saying, and I think Tucker mentioned it in the beginning, this trust and verify, right? It's true that the learning to work from home is not only for the managers, it's for the people that work from home. You have people that think working from home, it's a day off, or it's a laundry day rather than a work day, and people that believe that working from home is, is working. I have a door, a physical door. When I close that door is closed. That's it. Nobody opens it from the outside. And I am lucky. I have a room in my house that I can use as my office. But I know some people, don't have that. But when I also use that to keep myself working, because I can also get distracted. Go to the backyard and I don't know, or whatever I want to do. So it's just like it's a learning process, and that is my first advice would be, take it as a learning process. Talk to the people that are not productive or not being as productive as you expect them, and talk to them. So look, now that you're working from home, maybe you cannot work 8 hours looking at the clock because now you have a lot of more distraction. Maybe you have to ease on the clock, but look at the tasks that are assigned to you. That type of stuff. I will try to do goal oriented rather than time oriented.
Yeah. I agree with that. You said, don't manage their time, manage their deliverables, essentially. I forget how you put it, Pablo, but essentially, the way I see it is if people are doing what they need to be done, they're meeting their deadlines, and the ball's not dropping, then fine. I don't care. I mean, the sad part is I do care because I'm a control freak, and I want people working. I want their butts in a chair from a certain hour to a certain hour. Right? And I want them to respond to my email in 5 minutes because, God damn it, I'm paying them. But I try to tame my inner control freak, and I say, hey, as long as they're meeting their deliverables, that's fine. Now, if the deliverables aren't being met, let's talk, because especially folks that aren't used to working remotely, you're absolutely right. They see it as, oh, it's a vacation. I'll just check my email every once in a while, and I'll go get my oil changed. I'll go get my hair done. I'll go do these chores. That's fine. Go get your oil changed. But you're logging on tonight after the kids go to bed, right? If your deliverables aren't done. That's kind of the way I see it. But for me, it's a slippery slope. Gustavo, you mentioned, like, what are we tracking? I track, sorry if there's NIMSY people on here. I don't track. I can track activity of all my employees, right? And if you're using systems that were designed in the last 10 years, you can too. I warn anybody on this call, though, that is a slippery slope. It is a rabbit hole to go down. Once you start questioning, oh, was so-and-so working today, right? And you're going and checking their activity and checking this. And then before you know it, you've spent 3 hours as a manager going down the rabbit hole checking on one employee. That's not a good use of your time as a manager.
Yeah, so to that, Tucker, two things. So I absolutely agree. Like micromanaging or spying on somebody to see if it's working or not, it's a lot of time and it's not worth it. But it's also important that people answer your email in 5 minutes if that's their KPI. You know,
sure.
if it's an indicator, but it has to be clear for the people as well, right? I know they can answer while they're changing the oil with their phone, and that's okay if they answer the email, right? But so I think be clear with the goals. Just be sure that everybody's clear with the goals.
Yeah.
So
I think as a remote employee, and I know I joined kind of late because I was on a different call, so I don't know if I missed this already, but it's enormously helpful if the expectations are clearly defined, so that you don't want to have to bother each other all the time, that you can just go off and do your work. And I know what you were saying, that, you know, some people might see working from home as like, oh, it's vacation time, or I can do whatever I want. But I think there's also the flip side, that you have to run that risk that people cannot detach from their work anymore. Like I personally, I enjoy working from home, but like I work in my living room, and it's fine because there's nobody else here, just my dog. But it's hard to detach when all I do in the evening is move from here to the couch over there, and I can still like see my work all the time. And it's like, it can turn you a little bit into a workaholic as well, when you constantly have all your updates at a fingertip, or you can just go back and just put in a bit more work and put in a bit more work, and on the weekends as well. So I think it's, even as a remote employee, you even have to start to be stricter with yourself as well, to go like, okay, I want to do a good job, and occasionally I put in more hours, and that's fine. But you also have to create your own work-life balance again, because you don't leave the office. I mean, unless you go into town or do something.
But in a way, that's the same as in the office, isn't it? I mean, there's people that I've been in the office sometimes at 5 a.m. There's people there. You know, one day I have a call and I have to be in there, and then sometimes I leave at 9 p.m. and there's other people there. So it's like, well, everybody manages their own time. If they are workaholic, maybe they don't want to go home. Maybe they want to stay in the office because it's nicer. And I don't know.
For me, the brain space of it is different though. Like before, at least you can choose to stay in the office, but if your office is the same as your home, it's the distance is different.
Yeah. No, I see that, but I'm saying like this is not a new. But I'm saying this is not a new phenomenon. And I also think we should differentiate working from home in a normal circumstance and working from home when we're under house arrest, like we are right now. Like it's a very different circumstance. Like I work from home all the time, but under house arrest, it's a little bit more complicated, right?
Hashtag house arrest.
Because work is a distraction too. If I'm watching the news and I just my stomach starts going crazy, I just come to the office and write something.
Oh, I talked to you last week, Pablo. I think you called me, or I called you, and you're like, Tucker, I'm going crazy. I need something to do.
Exactly.
I've taken my dogs on 2 5-mile walks in the same day.
Yeah, they don't want to walk anymore.
Exactly.
And I also have one tip for remote employees, not managers, but because, for example, I'm working remotely part-time. So for me, it's really important to keep track of my time, because I need to invoice or whatever the hours that I'm spending. But for example, in the case of Gustavo's company, if your employees are not used to work remotely, I know timesheets sounds very bad, like people, like your manager wants to control you with specifying what have you done all day. But if you promote it as a way to keep the time that you're investing as an employee, not a way of controlling them, maybe it's good, because sometimes they can be distracted watching the news or checking Facebook or whatever, and then they've spent 2 hours but they haven't been productive 2 hours. But if you tell them to okay, you have to keep track of, if I have project managing this project 2 hours, then you have to do that, and you write it down. For me, that's helpful for the way I work. I don't know for the rest, but
Yeah, I like to do that with goals more than hours. So I like the people that work for me, especially when they're either new working for me or they just change jobs. I ask them every Friday, just take half an hour, no more than half an hour, write me one PowerPoint slide of the things that you did this week. And it's not to control you. It's so I know what you did this week, because maybe I'm thinking you're not working, you're not doing anything, and you rewrote, something very, very important, critical for the business, but I don't know about it. I'm going to think this person wasn't working. So I don't count hours ever. I count tasks. So just give me what you did, and if you want to put the hours on it because of I understand if you invoice hourly, it's a different story, but if you want to put the hours for to give me a size of the scope of the work that you did, I think that's great. But I'm not going to ask you for that. But I like to ask the people who work for me, and when they understand that it's not to control them, that it's actually for me to be more aware of what they're doing. It's the document becomes like a show off of the work that they've done, rather than a control, and that works really, really well for me.
Yeah, definitely. But some people, I'm also more like goal oriented, and I'm very responsible, and I do my work and whatever. But some people really need more control. Not everybody is so responsible, and so sometimes if you let some employees, okay, you can do whatever you want, maybe they stop being so productive if they are from home. That's the issue, because they don't have this mindset, as you were saying, because we are more used to work remotely. I don't know if anyone is facing this issue.
If you have a manager that tells you you can do whatever you want, he's not a manager.
No, I mean, not that you can do whatever you want, but you know what I mean, that okay, you have this project that you have to manage, and okay, but maybe you have more time, and it was easier to manage.
Yeah.
I think this is where tools can also really help. So, I mean, in my previous job, we just had a rule, which was if you're working, basically Skype was our workplace. So we said, if you're working, you need to be green on Skype. And if you're green on Skype and I write to you, you need to answer. So when you go to lunch, you set it to pause or whatever. So people know that you're there. I think that's the important thing. And now we use Slack, it's the same thing, right? Everybody can see who's online. I know more or less when my team should be online according to their time zones and the working hours that they are supposed to do. Again, I don't tell anybody, these are your working hours. Everybody more or less has their own schedule. I know what that schedule is. And if they're not going to be online at the time that I would expect them to be online, then they just need to tell me, I'm going out tomorrow morning, I've got this thing tomorrow, and it's like, fine, they make up the hours at another time. And it's not about checking, but just the fact that you can see them on these tools, and you see the activity, especially with Slack, like I can see instantly whether, people have been active or not. And then it's not all about how many messages you send, because it's about how productive you are and not who's the best at chatting, but it is an indicator of whether, people are present. Then the downside of Slack is that it just takes over your life. And then as a manager, managing a team, so I have a team of around 20 people who are in, I can't remember, last time it was maybe 19 countries, 6 continents. And so as a manager, I want to be able to respond if people have questions. But that could be anywhere between 6 a.m. to, late at night. I don't have, oh no, I do have somebody in Australia. Yeah, so it's, so for me, that's a problem. But I consider that You know, I'm very lucky to have a very stimulating job that I can do from my home while picking up my kids. So I see that as just being something that I accept to deal with. But yeah, I get that it's not for everybody.
Yeah, and there is this concept, I think it was 2 women that came out with it. It's called the results-oriented work environment, or results-only work environment, ROWE, which is essentially a way to approach this it was designed essentially for job sharing, but it applies to any type of service that you can measure, as Tucker mentioned before, KPIs, and you can have schedules and metrics, and as long as you deliver that by a certain deadline and you have some flexibility, you're doing your job, essentially.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear if people do have KPIs. We don't have KPIs. I mean, we have a roadmap, we have projects, we have plans, we have tasks. So, but we don't have official KPIs for
those are all
management.
KPIs, Stella.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you maybe you don't have formal KPIs, but you have KPIs. If I don't show up, if you ask me something on Slack and I don't answer all day, that is a KPI.
A task completed, like you have 10 tasks completed, that can be a KPI, or a certain number of...
KPI is just a fancy way of saying a goal with a dashboard attached to it, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a dashboard, then
Slack
it's a KPI,
is a
right?
dashboard.
Slack is
right?
a dashboard, exactly. Change your definition. Like we have, right after this, I'm going to jump off the call, and we're going to have our weekly goal meeting. Every week we have a meeting to go over our ongoing goals, and for each of those goals we have 5 to 10 lead and lag measures associated with them, and so those are kind of our KPIs. As long as those are all green, then we're kind of good to go. And also, you mentioned technology. Like we don't use Slack in my organization, but we have a project management suite where it's, I think, been super critical. I'm just going to show it to you here. Super critical in helping us stay oriented as a team, because like Pablo, you mentioned like having people send updates at the end of their day or at the end of their week so that you know what's going on. What I like about having a system like this is you can separate it out by projects, and not only you can define permissions for each project, and not only you but the rest of the team gets to know everything that everyone's working on. So we typically, not every day, we have this channel called daily updates, and people typically don't do it every day, but every day to 3 days, we'll just go in and we'll log an update on, like, here's what I'm working on. And the idea isn't so that they can be micromanaged. The idea is that maybe one of their colleagues 6 countries away sees what they're working on and says, oh, I have expertise in that, I can help you. Or actually, I'm working on something similar. Let's combine forces. So it prevents duplication of work, it prevents working in a silo, and it also, it promotes camaraderie, it promotes a sense of teamwork. And one thing that I've found amazing, having systems like this, we have other systems, we have chat channels and stuff like that, is that when I meet one of my team members for the first time in person, it doesn't feel like it's for the first time. Like it feels like we've met in person before because we are interacting. But the trick is, how do you do that in a way that doesn't consume your life, right? Like Stella, you said Slack consumes your life, right? That's where it will go. You know, I'll check this first thing in the morning. I'll check it for last thing before going to bed. So I as a manager have to set times when I'm checking it so that I'm not just living in my group meetings, my Slack channels all day.
Can you see his screen? It's so funny because it's you're in the
you can't.
regular screen.
I was showing it here. Let me share.
Because I can see it on Facebook. It shows your screen, but not here.
I apologize.
On Zoom.
We are still in the piloting phase of this whole social experiment here.
Yeah, what are you doing on Facebook, Renato? You should be working.
Exactly.
Well, I have this. Sorry.
There we go. So you guys can see, like, here's our project management dashboard. I've got all my different projects. We've got marketing initiatives, website redesign, info drops, daily tasks. So I can go to any of my projects and see how the tasks are being completed. This one is kind of an empty project. It's about marketing initiative. This is Mika's project. I can see the task status. I can see who's working on what's overdue. What I use most often is just this feed feature, which gives me all of the projects that I've subscribed to. It kind of gives me an update. So Sarah, looks like you posted an update. Sarah posts her updates. She's awesome. Some of us don't post updates as much as we should. So I can see, okay, what is Sarah working on? Is there any way I can support her? Is there anything that she's working on that she shouldn't be working on? Because I'd rather find that out now than find it out after she spent 2 weeks on it, right? So once again, it's not micromanagement. I don't see this as micromanagement. I see it as fostering communication and building.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. That's what I meant with the PowerPoint. So I'm a technology guy, right? And you all know that. So that's why I try to avoid technology as much as possible. So all these tools have learning curves, right? And I think that's another point I probably won't have time today to talk about technology and setup, right? Because I think those are key questions for the teleworkers, right? Have a good chair. Don't work out of the bathroom or inside a closet with no windows. Just, have a setup. And the technology is the same thing. It's like all these fancy tools that I love and I use. Sometimes for, let's say, we hire writers a lot, right? The writers they just want to use a word processor. Like, you don't tell them Slack or anything, they don't want to do that. And I understand that. That's not their core. They don't enjoy that. So they just want to use what they're comfortable with. And the other thing, it's the same thing with the video conference, right? We talk about muting and unmuting. Well, those are also learned skills. Like for example, does the host of every meeting know that they can mute other people if they're very loud, and everybody knows how to look if they're muted or not by themselves or by somebody else when they're talking in a conference call? So learning these tools, it's key to be able to have a better remote work experience, right? And I think that's responsibility of the manager. Like with the setup, like I like to ask the people, are you comfortable? Do you have a good chair, right? I see Stella's working from her kitchen. Oh, Stella, so why are you working from your kitchen? It can be a better place where, it's warmer or cooler, or, just ask questions specifically about, how they're feeling, how is their setup. And if they don't have a platform for the laptop, or if they don't have a good chair, just be sure to help them either to get it or figure out how to, borrow one from the office or things like that. Because I think that's also key for a good work. If you just have to sit down in a chair 8 hours, it better be a comfy chair. Headset, right?
Yeah. Don't work from bed. That's another thing. People that are new to work remotely, I'll just work from bed.
No, over 45. Maybe before 45 you can.
Get up, put your pants on, right? Yeah. Like, I love, Pablo, what you said earlier, sticking with me. It's basically like a metaphor for, like, good, healthy working from home. You have a door that closes, right? Like, have a separate space. Get up, shave, take a shower, go to work, right? If you can, have a separate space. If you live in a small apartment, have a dedicated place. And that's only your workspace so that you can get into that. And that's not just so that you can focus while you're at work. That's so that you can focus while you're not at work, right? Because if I'm working from the couch, then I start to subconsciously and consciously associate the couch with work, which means if I'm sitting on the couch and my kids come up and are bugging me for juice, I get frustrated because I'm in work mode, right? No, couch, kids, office, work.
Yeah, headsets also are very useful for that. So, for example, for the family, if I have my headset on, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
If I don't have my headset on, you can talk to me. Yeah, so that's for me is key. And and I like the getting dressed, like go to work, right? Assume that you will be on camera all day, even if you're not. So just get dressed. Just don't walk around with the laptop. I see sometimes in meetings that people do this. Like, nah, no.
Yeah.
What was that video this week of the Jennifer who went to the bathroom?
And I think
everybody was sharing. She goes to the bathroom, puts the phone down, takes her pants off, and she's in a conference call like this. That was hilarious.
But those are regular work stuff, right? Like I think that is. So I like to do these two differentiations. One is this house arrest time and versus regular remote work, and second one is like you are going to work. You're getting paid for this. Get your act together. Get dressed. Get comfy. Your work. Most of the companies will be good enough to pay for a good chair if you ask for it. More of the company will be fine for you to get an extra monitor. Ask for it, right? If you're not comfortable, say it. Your manager doesn't have. I mean, as managers, we're responsible to ask for that. But if we miss asking that, as a worker, you need to be able to ask that because it's part of your work environment. Your company wants you to be productive. They don't want you to be unhappy, in pain.
So one other good habit that we're going to implement right now is that you finish your calls 3 minutes before your next call. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Renato. You can leave, Renato. I'm not ready to end this call yet, though. You can leave, though.
I am leaving.
So this is an informal.
And it's 6 minutes.
Yeah,
4 minutes, not 3. So get your.
People can.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye, Gustavo. I think I heard you say. But just really quickly before we end today, it is good practice to end meetings on time. But if anyone has any other items that they want to talk about, like it was just great. Thanks to everybody for joining. It's great to see some faces and have that human connection. If anyone has any ideas for future meetings, because I'm going to keep doing this. And people are either going to like it or they're not. But I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's important to provide this opportunity to see faces during this time. Stella, I would love to talk to you offline, for example, about I think there's a lot of people in our industry that are very interested in what you guys are doing during this time. We won't get into that now with 5 minutes left, but we can take that offline. I think that would be super interesting. So,
yeah, very happy to. Yep.
Yeah, because I'm fascinated by that, and I know there's a lot of people, and if we can help you get that message out there, I'd like to support you on that. And for the rest of you, feel free to continue these conversations offline amongst yourselves. Reach out to me if you have any ideas, tucker@nimsy.com, and I will wish you a happy Wednesday. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.